What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Later on tonight, we do have the Game Awards, and tomorrow morning, I'll be going over everything that's announced there, so if you missed it or don't feel like going through almost 3 hours of it, tune in tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, and we'll go through it line by line pretty quickly. I also have an initial reaction video posted immediately after the Game Awards ends tonight, but of course, leading into the event, there are a bunch of big games that are being hinted at and teased, and we're going to go over some of the things that we could see actually here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo, as they did drop a bunch of NSO games, some for the N64 and one that is actually pretty fun for the GameCube. And we'll also be talking about PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, as we had a bunch of games go in there, as well as one awesome classic title. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Analogue. Now, we do have their new N64 system that's out there, and they kind of annoyed the overall user base when they announced these here. And yeah, you can, I mean, it's awesome because these are like the fantastic limited editions, as they say, kind of the transparent, different colored plastics. And again, they look good. The problem we run into is, of course, they were announced, a week or two after the Analogue 3D released and was shipping out. Would have been nice to know about a pretty expensive system. Would have been nice to know about these limited edition or special editions of the system ahead of time, because I probably would have picked one of these instead. Still, though, look, at least they're all functional, right? So there you go. But in this case, they are now up on their website, although I'm sure they're selling through pretty quickly. And then we also have the Analogue 3D regular editions, black and white, that are available now. They do also mention that the fantastic limited editions are guaranteed shipping by Christmas, whereas for the 3D regular models, black and white, those will be shipping January 2026. Just wanted to point that out, and let me know down below in the comments which fantastic color you'd be more interested in. And how you feel about Analogue showing up, a week or two after the launch of the Analogue 3D with a bunch of really cool looking systems that they just randomly found in the back, apparently. Also, it looks like that sale for the Switch 2 that we saw pop up during Cyber Monday, but then kept going for Walmart, and then it trickled over into Best Buy, Amazon, and more. That's just over now. In fact, if you look over on Walmart's page, the Switch 2 with the Mario Kart world packed in is back up to $500. So they also mentioned, Nintendo does, that it's while supplies last. Even though they had removed the limited edition status on some of their advertisements for it, it seems like they may still be sticking with it. And as I mentioned, I think this is going to end up becoming their Black Friday, Cyber Monday bundle. And I mean, it would follow along with what they did with the Switch 1 every single year. We had Mario Kart 8 Deluxe getting packed in with the Switch, and they would move around the model of the Switch depending. Like, we eventually went to like the better battery Switch. They did that. They've played around with things like the Switch OLED in there. So this is, again, just sort of the status quo, and I feel like after this year, we'll just be talking about, oh yeah, here comes the Mario Kart World Switch 2 Black Friday Cyber Monday deal like clockwork. Oh, and we do have EVO happening next year in June 2026. It looks like we have all the different games that will be there. We can see this. This is like the card that they put up just to showcase the different games, with it looks like some that are appearing for the first time, like 2XKO, but then also some regulars: Blaze Blue, Central Fiction, Fatal Fury, Guilty Gear. This is like the 5th year for that one. And then also like Invincible Versus. I was a little surprised to see that's an interesting one to show up, because those kinds of games, I'm not the greatest at fighting games. It's not really my wheelhouse, but it is fun to see some of these games when people are just good at them, how it looks in motion there. And then, of course, staples: Tekken, Street Fighter. I saw Virtual Fighter 5 Revo World Stage also being in attendance. I'm also not the biggest viewer of EVO, but there are some really cool clips that get posted up on social media that I'm coming across, and it's a lot of fun, again, to see the games when people are actually good at them, not when I'm necessarily trying to play them and just pick Ryu and Street Fighter. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Game Awards. That's happening tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and there's gonna be a pre-show and probably at least a 2-hour main show. So this is gonna be, I think, a 3-hour ordeal, maybe even a little longer than that. It'll be streaming on multiple different platforms, including Amazon Prime. That is, I think, a big deal. It makes it more and more official each year, as Jeff Keighley is trying to kind of make it really the Oscars of games. And of course, going into this, because there are so many eyes right now on this event, a lot of stuff's getting hinted at, leaked, teased by big companies, and we'll go over some of the ones that have started to pop up over the last 24 hours as of this recording, starting with Sega, who they posted this themselves over on their own account here on YouTube, saying, stay tuned, you won't want to miss it, as they are pointing towards, yes, the Game Awards 2025 live stream that is scheduled at this time. And I mean, this is clear and away Skies of Arcadia, obviously. Now, I think you could, maybe like a Skies of Arcadia, I don't know, remaster or something. No, I'm thinking Jet Set Radio. I mean, it kind of feels like we should be lining up for that, maybe to come out in 2026. Seems like a good stage to showcase that, as they have shown off all these different games that they're bringing back from the past at the Jeff Keighley events. So why not have a big blowout here for a Jet Set Radio and show off what they've been working on? There's also some mention of multiple Tomb Raider games. And here's the thing, okay? Shinobi kind of went crazy over on Reset Era and just started replying a lot of cryptic stuff to people based on what they were saying over there. So one seems to be multiple Tomb Raider games that could be announced tonight. And I'm thinking we would see, we've talked about this. There were rumors that there would be the new Tomb Raider game there, like the brand new one and the mainline series and stuff. And there would be one where they go back and either remake or remaster one of the originals, and it seems like maybe they could be doing a full-on remake of the first or second one or something like that for Tomb Raider. That comes out a bit sooner, and then like the brand new game comes out later on. Kind of similar to what we saw with Ninja Gaiden, where we had Ninja Gaiden Black 2, and then also we had Ninja Gaiden 4, and those are spread out through the course of this year. I'm kind of thinking something similar maybe with Tomb Raider. Control 2 also is something that's hinted at, as someone's mentioned, well, Remedy wouldn't be ready to show the next Control if they also still have to show Max Payne and stuff. Not necessarily. Control 2 absolutely could be here, or at least a new game in the Control universe, I guess. Sony also being hinted at here as having something, and that's not shocking. Sony does show up at Jeff's events quite frequently, with, of course, Intergalactic being a big announcement last year at the Game Awards. So why wouldn't they show up here with something else? That God of War 2.5D keeps being hinted at as a thing sometime in the near future. This seems like a good spot for it. I mean, look, the God of War 2.5D game is something that is very intriguing to me, just to see how they approach that, whether it's the art style or the controls or even the overall structure and setup. Is it a Metroidvania game? Is it more of a straightforward 2D action game? A lot of questions on how exactly they put that one together. And apparently it was delayed. The word's been going around that it was delayed to add voice acting. So, we'll see how all that turns out when they are ready to show it. If it's coming out next year, though, I'd like to think they'd want to get the ball rolling here, so I guess we'll see. We also had Jonathan Blow, who showed up on YouTube, an announcement of an announcement, that's just like, hey, letting people know, and he spent like 3 or 4 minutes just constantly saying, man, the Game Awards, that'd be crazy if I announced something, or we announced something there. Wouldn't that be wild if there was an event coming up? Basically, yes. Jonathan Blow getting on a plane, heading out to an event here with the Game Awards. So he'll be announcing something, it seems like, later on tonight. And we do have a free game, that being for the Epic Game Store, which you can see here from Jeff Keighley saying you tune in tonight and you'll find out what the mystery free game is coming to that Epic Game Store. Some have been floating around the idea of it being Lords of the Fallen. That'd be, I guess, kind of interesting. Here's the thing, though. It's a free game. You click a few buttons, it adds it to your library. However, the thing, it just shows you where we are with the Epic Game Store versus Steam. You can tell somebody you can have this game for free, and then people go, yeah, but I kind of have to download the Epic Game Store to do it. And there are people who just pass on it, which it's wild because it's a free game. But there you go. That's just kind of where we are with the Epic Game Store and Steam. Now, there was one other thing that was kind of interesting. While it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with leaked games, there was an entire report that was put out from different sources that were gathered by Kotaku. And it appears we have some numbers as to what it costs, say, to run a trailer at the Game Awards. All right. So if you do 60 seconds, you have a 60-second trailer, you want to just go ahead and show off your game very, very quickly, costs $450,000. Now, if you want to go up to 3 minutes, it costs $1 million. So it seems like Jeff will cut you a bit of a deal there if you go kind of a bulk order of 360-second cuts instead of doing $450,000 each time. He'll knock it down to a cool $1 million for that. And this caused some reactions online, we'll say. People may be a little shocked at the amount on that one. However, it seems like with some of the sourcing, they're like, yeah, it's about in line with what it costs to advertise. Say, at E3 was like crazy expensive to be part of that, like in person. Right, setting up a booth we're talking millions of dollars, because not only are you setting up the booth, you also have to you have to employ people to go there and run the booth and do the customer relations stuff. That was a whole thing. And then the travel, and there's a lot of logistics involved. This is just about, hey, we have a trailer that we want to run, and it's going to be $1 million for 3 minutes. So whenever you see a trailer pop up here for the Game Awards, understand that it wasn't cheap to be there. So then also think about the game that's being shown off, and it's like, was this a good idea? I mean, I guess the kind of numbers that Jeff is pulling in, especially now being on Amazon Prime, which that'll be, I'm sure, another bump in terms of ratings, seems like he's poised to probably set another high watermark in terms of viewership. And that does make me think that he probably has some other big reveals lined up, because while it costs this much to have a 3-minute trailer, I'm sure there are some that Jeff gives heavy discounts to, or maybe just outright is like, don't worry about it, because it's going to build a lot of hype and excitement around this event, and, will charge money from people who aren't necessarily going to be pulling in, I guess, those kinds of numbers, that high interest. So it'd be interesting to see what we have tonight. I'm thinking we're going to have some pretty good announcements, so I'm looking forward to what is effectively a mini E3. I mean, if you think about it, you take Jeff's Summer Game Fest, smash it together with the Game Awards, you do have E3 just kind of split up in the middle of the year and then towards the end. Oh yeah, and as for my final prediction for who wins Game of the Year, do you need me to run the prediction? I mean, look, I'm going with what I think most people will. That's Clair Obscur Expedition 33 with the potential upset of, I guess, Hollow Knight. It seems clear in a way that Expedition 33 is going to win, but man, it'd be an interesting upset if it didn't. Next up, let's talk about some new NSO games going into the service for the expansion pack tier, one today and the others next week. And in fact, some of these games continues to lean into that very blurry leak that people put together with the CRT filter for the N64 side for a certain game, which we'll get to here. First, though, let's take a look at what Nintendo announced, starting with the N64. These games will be coming to the service, as they say here, December 17th, and that'll be Rayman 2, The Great Escape, and Tonic Trouble. That, of course, for the expansion pack tier, and I don't have a lot of experience with Tonic Trouble. It's one of those games that kind of passed me by during the N64 generation, so let me know if you have experience with it, if you liked it, is it a game worth checking out? But the other one, Rayman 2, The Great Escape, is an awesome game. I remember renting it back in the day on the N64. If you had the expansion pack in, you had like the high-res mode, and the frame rate wasn't great, but it was still a classic experience in a generation where frame rates were kind of accepted. I'll say that. So this game, though, was one that if you checked out my Analogue 3D video, I was playing this and checking it out with the increased frame rate, and it still looks and plays awesome. So this is an easy recommendation. If you've never played it, the emulation, we assume here, will be pretty good, or at least decent, and it won't be anywhere near as sluggish as the N64 version of the game playing on real hardware. That, again, dropping December 17th. Now, the thing that's so interesting about this is it continues to lean into, which we can see, actually, Wario64 posted it here. It does continue to lean into what people put together from that CRT filter. People are calling it the CRT leak, because after it was reconstructed, you can see we have for Forsaken, we have Rayman 2, and then what's that over there? Oh yeah, Donkey Kong 64, Super Smash Brothers, and you see Glover. Now people are of course, are looking at Super Smash Bros. And Donkey Kong 64, two games that have not been announced at this time from Nintendo first party that people have been asking for. So, I mean, it seems like it's all lining up to where we will get a Donkey Kong 64 dropped in. Smash Brothers is going to be the interesting one, because Nintendo has Smash that they want people to play, right? The Smash Brothers Ultimate. So having two Smash Brothers games on one system is, I don't know, I'm curious if Nintendo is interested in kind of going down that path. But this CRT leak has not been wrong yet. Again, it keeps hitting, so I guess I'm inclined to believe that it will happen at some point. So after those announcements, we kind of figured that was it for Nintendo, but the idea around a GameCube release was also coming up, and I was wondering if they would get a GameCube game out by the end of this month, and wouldn't you know it, they announced it hours later. Here you can see over on their account, they say, ready to rumble with Wario, you'd better be. Throw punches, charge through crowds, and pummel foes in Wario World. Available now on Switch 2 through that expansion pack tier. And I went ahead, I quickly updated the app. I checked out the game, and it looks good. Like, it runs well here so far. And it's still Wario World, as you'd expect. And here's the thing, this is a 3D platformer from back in the day during that GameCube era. I think kind of flew under the radar, but also it was just an okay game. It didn't do anything too new other than just take at least Wario and put him into a 3D kind of environment there. But it was interesting because it was sort of a fixed camera unless you went into certain areas that are kind of like side missions almost in these levels, and then you'd be able to rotate the camera all the way around. I remember renting this back in the day and I had a blast with it. But I'll admit, I haven't really played it much recently, so I was curious to go back and just see how it's aged. But this is a game that, once again, in the GameCube library has, just accrued a ton of value. This game is anywhere from $80 to $100 online, or hey, you have the expansion pack tier, guess what? It's in your library and you can check it out right now. So not a bad couple of games there for Nintendo to just kind of announce out of the blue for NSO with that expansion pack tier. N64 games in next week, Wario World out today in that GameCube app. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus. We have extra and premium to go over. We can see this over on PlayStation Blog. Now, these games will be going in December 16th outside of Skate Story, which is already available. Remember, that released on December 8th as a day one release into extra and premium. So let's take a look at what we have here, starting with Assassin's Creed Mirage. That is an Assassin's Creed game that I thought was pretty good. It was not going to be this massive, expansive Assassin's Creed. It's a bit more withdrawn in terms of the size and the runtime, but that's not a bad thing. Some of these Assassin's Creed games feel like they go on forever. So I think that's a good recommendation there. If you've even been out of Assassin's Creed for a little while, check that one out. Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, that's on the PS5 and the PS4. Skate Story on the PS5. I've been playing this and I do like it. It's very different. It's an interesting skateboarding, I'll say, adventure game. It's definitely something I haven't really played before. So if nothing else, the setting and the story is weird. It's out there. Feels like something out of the PS2 era when it comes to the story as taking chances around just being strange. So I do recommend it. I think it's kind of cool. The controls are interesting, and it's a different take on the skateboarding genre there. We also have Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. That's on PS5 and PS4. Planet Coaster 2 on the PS5, Cat Quest 3, PS5 and PS4, Lego Horizon Adventures on the PS5. We have Paw Patrol Grand Prix and Paw Patrol World. Both of those out on PS5 and PS4. And then moving up to PlayStation Plus Premium, Soul Calibur 3. That's PS5 and PS4, which is a very, very good 3D fighter, I guess, how you describe Soul Calibur, really. Soul Calibur is kind of its own beast, but Soul Calibur 3 was an instant classic from back in the day on the PlayStation 2, and they do go over it having enhanced up rendering, rewind, quick save, custom video filters, all kinds of stuff there. So it should look pretty good. I remember on the PS2, that was one of the standouts, is the fact that visually speaking, graphics, it looked great at that time, right? So I'm sure with the up rendering and stuff, it'll still look good here. My only gripe with this is it does feel like they could do more with the classics side of things. And when you look at how expensive premium is, it's like $160 a year. That does get in the territory of, look, extra, that's cool that they have all these games going in, sure. But to justify premium, I kind of feel like you need at least 2 games going in each month from the classic side. So this could be a PS2 game here with Soul Calibur 3, and then a PSP game, or a PS1 game. You throw something like that in there alongside of it. It's just it's getting harder and harder to look at and go, yeah, it makes a lot of sense premium. Although they have at least built up a nice library there, so if you subscribe now, you do get the back catalog of games they've been adding in. I just mean more about the excitement around more games going in per month. At least Soul Calibur 3 is a high quality release, and I guess they're thinking they can just rely on that one. But I would like to see a little more each month now as we head into 2026, especially as they work to kind of wind down PS4 and like PSVR 2 stuff is just out at this point. So let's see some more classics as we get into 2026, hopefully starting in January. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, final prediction, does a new Half-Life game get announced at the Game Awards? I just want to put it out there. Let's hear it. 78% say no. 22% say yes. There was I think kind of a ridiculous rumor going around that it was Half-Life Xen, Xen. And that sounds completely off because HLX is the thing that's going around, and that's just a code name apparently within Valve. So I don't think that would necessarily then turn into as an acronym into the title of the game, because those code names are also kind of there to sort of throw people off, but not entirely. So don't know what this new Half-Life game that apparently is in development is called, but it at the Game Awards does seem, I think, unlikely. Not impossible, but unlikely. I still think Valve, they'll just announce it when they're ready. So I kind of wonder if they're holding it back for when it's time to talk price point on that Steam machine and Steam frame, so they can go, hey, maybe a little more expensive than they were thinking. But we also have Half-Life 3 that's coming out at that same time on launch, and maybe it'll even be packed in, again, to help soften the blow. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from A-Spec, who says 53 gigabytes for the Switch 2. Wow, yeah, this is something that people are going to be realizing as we go along through this generation that's still pretty early. I mean, the games are just getting bigger for the Switch 2, and game key cards, digital, it all starts really eating into that 256 gigabytes of storage that at first glance, we were like, whoa, that's pretty good. Okay, because we have all these games on the cartridges, right? Here comes the game key card to kind of ruin that thought process. You look at the lineup of games now, it is majority game key card, and you're basically just downloading the whole game, so kind of need to get that micro SD Express card that, once again, I think going into next year and then 2027 is just going to get more and more expensive with all the stuff going on behind the scenes with components pricing going up and supply issues because of all the AI stuff. It's going to get interesting. So even Nintendo with Age of Imprisonment, that was a pretty large game. It was more than 40 gigabytes. Here you go with something like, you just think of, oh, Skyrim. Yeah. Anniversary. Okay, sure. And it shows up Switch 2 edition one day. It's over 50 gigabytes. You have to download that entire thing. It's not even just, oh, you already have it. Great. No, you have to delete the old one, download all 50 gigabytes of this one. It's going to be an interesting time as we go through this generation and see. I think some file sizes, it's thrown out there, 100 gigabytes or more, I don't think that's completely off the table. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear about how Activision Blizzard had to respond, almost apologize to the fan base around Call of Duty and their path forward now. I did an entire video checking that out, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.